let me say good morning to the entire nation. Of course, our sister Isles also, Carriacou, Petit Martinique. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Let me say good morning also to those of you who are viewing via GBN TV. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. Today being Wednesday, it's the 22nd day of February. Wow, time is suddenly on the move, man. I just like to say that. Time is on the move. Anyway, let me say good morning to our social media audience also. Those of you who are viewing via our Facebook page, those of you who are viewing via our YouTube channel, welcome. And those of you who are listening via terrestrial radio, Classic 105, welcome to another edition of To The Point. It's your host, GT with you. I'll be taking you through for the next hour. And do have guests with me this morning. Yes, we do have guests with me this morning. And with me this morning is Mr. Kennie John. He's the chairman of the Chambers of Commerce here in Grenada. And we're having a chit-chat with him this morning. It's all about Grenada ICT Week. And we certainly will be talking about that, all the happenings and everything that will be coming around with the week. Let's go over to Mr. John and say good morning to him, sir. Good morning to you, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning, good morning. Good morning to your listeners and viewers.
All right. Well, welcome to The Point this morning. It's interesting to have you this morning. It's an interesting conversation we're going to be having pertaining to the week of activities that are coming up in Grenada, starting from the 27th. If my info before me, let me get that info popped up before me this morning. It commences from the 27th. Goes up until the 3rd of March. Yes, I think I got my info with me right now. And it's all about ICT Week. Let's kick it off this morning. Give me an overview of what's coming up, and I'll be getting to more details pertaining to it. I give you that go ahead and give me an overview of ICT Week in Grenada.
Certainly. ICT Week is essentially a week where international organizations, particularly those who issue IP addresses and other Caribbean stakeholders, come together to have a ICT Week in Grenada. 27th is simply a meet and greet day. That's when most of them come in. We are expecting roughly about between 15 and 20 delegates from various parts of the world. It's a wonderful opportunity to have that, and the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce is proud to be the host on this occasion. We are excited simply because everything and anything that you could imagine that has to do with business or our lives, for that matter, is through the Digi world. And the Digi world is coming to Grenada. Specifically, though, the conference seeks to deal with items that are specifically related to infrastructure.
All right.
As you can imagine, it's one thing talking about end users. I mean, maybe not too far away that we can get our phone, in the middle of our palm, projected by a bracelet or something to that effect. But what is it that makes that happen?
Mm-hmm.
As you can imagine, you will have to put some things in place, and quite a lot of that is to do with IP addresses and also broadband connections, etc., etc., etc. So the good folks are coming in, notably Caribnog, Aaron, ICANN. These are all international agencies who have actually provided their experts. Grenada is fortunate from that point of view. It is not something that is costing us, but rather costing those countries to send their experts to come and share with us. As you can see from what information you have, as I said before, the 27th is simply, the day, a little meet and greet.
Mm-hmm.
It all kicks off on the 28th, however.
All right.
First forum is actually the business forum. And this is where, we invite businesses to come in. And this particular forum is really for the people who make decisions, for them to understand a little better why you need certain types of equipment. And we can run gauntlet from servers to what I would call protection, that is security. So ICT security, and then security surrounding everything that you do, network security and all of that is quite important.
Right.
And they'll be dealing with some of those topics because the business people are the ones who essentially make the decisions. Some of us are stubborn sometimes, and our IT people will be telling us, well, we need this and we need it. And we're like, well, what do we need it for? I believe that there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had. Are we as business people doing enough to not just secure our business, but to have efficiencies in our business?
All right.
Yes.
All right.
What are the system, the management system? And so it's not just thinking of it as a computer there and it's meant, to get emails and run some accounts and so on. It's part of a management system. And that management system involves, computer science. So it's trying to have a cohesive sort of arrangement in managing your businesses, and therefore that's why it's so important for the business owners to be there.
All right.
Just to move on. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you this. Being this particular event is going to be taking place here in Grenada. How important it is? Because I know that there are lots of businesses in Grenada who their business per se is drives around ICT. How is it important it is for businesses to put ICT as a top agenda, and having this week, this ICT week? How is it important for business to participate and learn more in terms of having their business move forward in this technological era or age, as some folks would say?
Well, if we think about it, almost anything that we do today, as I said, be it business or in our personal lives, involves ICT. For me, I'm anywhere in the world, and I can pick up my cell phone and call an extension line in my office. How's that possible? Yes. Now, one, being connected. I think we would all agree that being connected, the human beings have found a way to connect wherever you are in the world. The importance of it, however, is the business drivers that take care of the various businesses that we all we're all part of. It's so important that we take part in this event and that we come and we listen more, because what we think we know, the world is a lot further ahead. And we have to do some catching up in Grenada, a big time.
All right.
So we have to find out the technology that's behind what we have to do. And is it out of our reach? Is it not? These are the things that we'll be talking about, and business owners need to know.
All right. Now tell me, Grenada as it is, in terms of technology, from the Chamber's point of view, are we progressing in ICT, or are we still a long way? There's still a long way to go for us in Grenada.
I think there's a long way. We are we like the idea, and we're fascinated by end user scenarios. But if we have to think about the business of business, we have to also reimagine ourselves where we are in this country and where we are moving to, and what do we want to do. Some of the inventions throughout the world in various forms. Think about the cooking gas in the form that it is, and that allows everybody to be able to cook in their own house. That wasn't there before. That's an invention that changed the world. Just so, the days of telex and faxes, everybody would remember that communication.
Folks who wouldn't remember a fax from now.
Exactly, and those who know of it. That those days, the days of writing a letter. You have to write it out, proofread it, and it took 3-4 days maybe to get a letter off. Right now we use emails. It's almost instant, and any day of the week, any night, we can communicate in various forms. I would say we are a little behind in terms of infrastructure, because we also have to decide where are we going to position ourselves, not just in EC but in the world. Just imagine Grenada being a facilitator of what I would call internet-based business, rather than simply that we use it for our own businesses. Yes, I've met over the period of the pandemic a number of people living in Grenada, Carrick even, And one particular one comes to mind. There's a lady. She's actually a veterinary researcher, all the way from Switzerland, and she lives, among us. She's not leaving. What does she do? The research. She never gets close to any animal. But what happens is that the data that is collected from these various research labs sent to her, and she analyzes it. Now, that is facilitation. Does she have problems? Yes. Her internet connection. Yes. But nevertheless, she's determined because she loves living in the country. That's just an example of something that exists that we can do if we have better broadband connectivity. And also, if our business is structured or Grenada decides to, look, I want to be a facilitator of ICT business in the world. That is a whole new industry. Typically, the way we can look at it as the way the light bulb changed the world. Before, everyone had to go to bed, once it starts to get dark. Yes. Huddled around campfires, perhaps. Now, it created a whole new economy. And I think we can reimagine and make some decisions on what we want to do and where we want to go. Right. Is our physical space sufficient to create the size of the economy that we want to have? The earnings in the country, obviously, you're restricted by the size of your economy, the space that you have. We're not creating any more land, are we? So we have to look further afield. We can talk about the way that an airplane changed the world in terms of bringing visitors to a shore. So all of a sudden, there's a whole new industry and therefore a new economy also.
All right. I want to ask you this before we take our first break. You spoke a lot about the infrastructure in terms of developing ICT in Grenada. Folks would still see, we came a long way in terms of how we used to, back in the days from dial-up to, to DSL. Now we have, full broadband internet here in Grenada. It may not be the best in comparison to other parts of the world, but the infrastructure in Grenada, how much more development does your particular, company sees need to be expanded?
I would refer to the experts on that one because I'm not really a techie person. But the little that I do know, for example, my own organization, we're local to Grenada, Antillian. We built our own application for our insurance software. So why can't we be building more? Are there people out there? Yes. Are the laws in our country, have they adapted so that we can encourage what you call program developers, etc., etc. So infrastructure is not only to do with the equipment, but rather laws that surround it. That have we decided to create an industry, an ICT industry, for example, and then that would bring along other bits and pieces that creates infrastructure. So it's not only from a physical point of view that we get some incredible machines and that sort of thing.
Let me also ask you this: in terms of businesses that are not getting that insight, that inspiration, to get onto that digital highway of promoting their businesses and just working. I know we see from the pandemic where businesses around the world, it has proven that an individual can stay home and perform efficiently as even coming to the workplace. You understand?
Correct.
And we don't get that 100% in Grenada. It's probably at a limited capacity in terms of how individual will work. For example, the radio station here, one can stay home now and create a mini studio and broadcast without, one even knowing that he's not even here. You understand?
Right.
So
right.
we see that it has come a long way, but how much more do we need to develop?
Need is an important word, and it's a strong word. It's when do we want to be, and how do we see ourselves as imagining and reimagining ourselves as a society. Put simply, in country, there are two things: there's a society, and there's an economy. And they have to grow together. We have to figure out, in terms of the services, let's just take a simple jab at, we all complain, government services, we think of it as being inefficient, etc., etc. Is there the infrastructure within our governments, for example, to make sure that the hospitals and the fire station and the police and everything works together? Is there central data collection point that makes everything not just secure but run efficiently? Yes. Our births and deaths records, for example, is NIS linked to our births and deaths records, these kinds of things. So when we talk about wanting more, how much more we need, we have to get past the surface. And we may only think of it as being able, let's say, to access that portal for NIS this month, once a month. But is that all that needs to happen? One would say, from the time a child is born, national insurance should know about it. It shouldn't be, after when you turn 18, now it's a whole process. That should be a smooth process, actually. Likewise, if you have to get a death certificate now, you must go up to the ministry. Yeah. And you must apply. So there are a number of things in our society and surrounding our society. For example, pensioners. Why can't pensioners simply get a top up on a card which they can use for their buses? Yes. The question is that beyond us at this stage, or how can it work? So you might say how much more you would need, but certainly I think the pensioners, rather than traipsing up and down to receive their monthly allowance, there could be some way that we can get to them without them having to take that journey. Again, the buses cost. You know what I mean? So we have to reimagine our own society in relation to what is happening in the rest of the world, and figure out how far back we are and where we need to go. Likewise, the business of business. Are we going to do this as a business? Or can we do that as a business? What are the advantages of doing this as business? Yes? Nationally, that is not just our business, just the individual businesses in the country, but obviously, just as we have SU. I mean, who would have ever thought? I think the second largest employer on the island. It's all related.
Certainly understand you. Let's take a break. We're coming right back, folks. It's to the point for today. It's Wednesday, the 22nd day of February. We're coming right back with much more. Stay with us, folks. We're coming right back.
Grill Master. Now available. Grill Master Takeaway. Healthy choices of dinner is available every day from 5 p.m. A solution to end your day with healthy, hot meals. Are you tired of fried, greasy foods, junk food, high-calorie food before bed, leading to a bad night and sleep? Grill Master brings the solution for you by offering customized, hot, fresh, healthy grilled foods sustainable for after workout, your keto diet, and those who love greens. Let your last meal be your next day fresh start. Grill Master is second to none. Advance your order for pickup or delivery at 439-3737 or our WhatsApp number at 1-473-423-3737. Grill Master, second to none.
Last week on Our Climate Reality.
Climate change is in fact a real phenomenon, and it is already occurring, and we are already beginning to feel the impacts in our region. And those impacts are not just restricted to the physical impacts, more rain, hotter, but it then impacts our quality of life and how we are able to, to really live on a day-to-day basis. And that's the significance of climate change.
We have to understand what our current climate pattern is, and then try to understand how that pattern might change in the future. And of course, the changing climate pattern will force us to shift our lifestyles, or could force us to shift our lifestyles. But let's also remember not just to keep it in the human-centric viewpoint. There's a whole biosphere out there that's going to be impacted. Coral reefs reefs, marine ecosystems, agriculture, chickens, poultry farmers, and most of it is going to have an economic impact.
Join us this Wednesday at 8 p.m. as our panel discuss the opportunities and co-benefits for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. All Climate Reality, GBN Television Channel 7 and 11, K105 FM, and all our social media platforms.
That's what we say. Welcome back, listeners and viewers this morning. It's to the point for today, Wednesday, the 22nd day of February. And this morning, I'm speaking to Mr. Kennie John. He's the chairman of the Grenada Industry and Commerce. And we're talking about ICT Week in Grenada, which kicks off from the 27th, goes up until Friday, the 3rd of March. And our previous conversation, Mr. John, we spoke a lot, especially in terms of the whole aspect of how the regular individual businesses, can get themselves into this technological age of being able to be ICT efficient in terms of their everyday way of doing things. Now, there's a particular day coming up in this week when the public sector, per se, they will be having that public sector forum. All right, and give us a little insight into this. Who's invited? Who's will be there? And what are some of the challenges that will be in that particular forum coming up?
Well, we touched on it a little earlier. I'm hopeful that most of the ministers themselves could make it, because it's trying to reach, as if you could imagine, managers and so on, and all business owners in the business forum. The public sector forum is similar. The people who run the public sector, PSs, would be pretty important. The purpose of this is to put them in the know about management mechanisms that can be put in place using ICT for more efficient and productive, what you call having a productive environment. It's one thing to talk about, again, as I said, there's a computer there to use, and we seem to take it for granted somewhat, but what can we do? Is our system in the public sector, systems, is it secure? Does it work efficiently? Do we have workflows that are able to convert into a digital environment? And how would that help? I think it would be good for the decision-making process. Simple things of tracking items, and if we go back to the deaths and birth, if there's a request, how does that function? How do we get approval? How do we mix what we have now, which is stuff that is heavily dependent on paper, moving paper from one place to the other? How can we put this into a system? What is the design of the system that can be used to make sure that we have efficiencies and high productivity in those sectors? Do we need a system in terms of, for example, one ministry where it's a single database, or do you have multiple databases dealing with different things? And then you have tables behind that to create more efficient workflows and work rotations. Yes,
and that can also lead to the interconnectivity of the various.
Correct. I'm not sure. Is there a single mailing? When we send our mail to any ministry, does it go one place, and then it is sorted? Is that computerized? Or is it that every ministry does its own mail sorting? All these things are important, and hopefully what will come out of this is that synergies may be formed, finding a more cohesive way. A big thing that we have tons of records as part of our nation's everyday activity. Is that digitized, or is everything in paper? And you can imagine digitizing everything would be a massive undertaking. Now, how would we do that? All these things, I believe, can be spoken of, because while you have experts who would be will be delivering presentations, etc. You also have the Q&A session, which is the open session where it's really a discussion where you get down to the business of the public sector, and mainly the people who work in the ministries. I'm sure they have frustrations just the same. But, we need some ideas to drive that. I'm not sure that we practice to the extent where we say, okay, we'll do that. And then there's another big thing, resistant to change.
Yeah.
That is in terms of anybody who works in digital services, that is perhaps, we're human beings and we're very resistant to change.
We're so accustomed to doing things in a particular way.
That's right. That's
and
right.
I'm accustomed just writing a note and giving it to my secretary or whoever is in charge, and that's it. Now, how efficient it would be if I could write a note on my computer and have it shared with the entire nation as a whole, if you want to say, especially the business sector, and make it more efficient. And you make a keynote a while ago, efficiency in terms of everything. It also helps save a lot in terms of the environment. You understand?
It does.
It does save a lot.
It does. And one more thing to add to that. We make decisions, we have discussions, we have action points. Is it documented? And that's a major part of the existence of any society. If we go all the way back to hieroglyphics, which the Egyptians used, we can, thousands of years later, through the hieroglyphics that they have drawn, made, whatever way you see them, they're writing, trace back certain events that took place back in those days. If you think of it now, by you placing a note in your Ethernet in your own office, you can trace back to see, okay, this is when this note was given. One, why wasn't it acted on? Or two, as a result of that being there, how much time has passed before we dealt with this? Or if we knew this back then, why didn't we act in accordance to its importance, for example? So there are many advantages to documenting, and documenting is a very important part of not just the ministry, but even in businesses. So we have to look at this as a societal evolution in being able to document as much as possible everything, and as much as we do, because it creates efficiencies, it keeps knowledge there. No one remembers everything. Go ahead.
You were making a statement in terms of the efficiency in terms of government agencies and so forth, and you stress a lot in terms of the record keeping that we see from time to time that the stress in terms of individuals who go out and try to obtain documents from various should I say particular divisions in government. And now if we could have this digitalized in a particular way, it will improve in terms of the time that individual will take in terms of trying to obtain this information and so forth. So it certainly will go a long way, and certainly hope that the public sector, areas will come out and be part of this and learn more in terms of making it, this little island of us. We're small, so it could be done if the folks in authority wish to get it going in the way we want it.
And I think that is the thrust of that day, to encourage the managers of the society to have a look at putting management systems in place, which involves ICT and other IT mechanisms. And this is not just for those of us who are consumers, or who are the clients, or who are to be served, but also those who work there. Any form of business, and I look at PSs and government workers essentially as people who serve the nation. It is important to know that structure. And anything we can do to structure our day-to-day activities, structure what we're centered on in terms of achieving, be it weekly, daily, monthly, whatever. Once the structures are put in place, the rest takes care of themselves. But here's the problem. what if we don't even know that these structures could be put in place? And this is where these experts who have vast experience in far bigger nations could, let us into a little bit of, what happens there. And so we can have something that we can strive towards.
Another important element of this is the security aspect, because everybody focuses a lot on security, especially when it comes to their personal information and so forth. I mean, I'm assuming that aspect of this, this ICT week, is the security going to be a part of an important discussion in this also?
So that brings us to the next day, what you would call the third day of the forums, which is basically the tech part, or tech people, tech companies, etc. I'm sure you're going to get snippets through both the private sector forums and the public sector forum, the business forum, but also the tech people. I think they're going to get also a blast of what is out there in terms of network security, in terms of security on a whole. It's very important. And two, I think the whole public needs to be informed of what is security? Where is your information going? How is it kept? And not just by your particular office, but the nation.
Can anybody could just pick up your phone, your lost, and get everything that knows your banking information and all these things.
Exactly. And if you realize that a lot more your banking, a lot more people are doing banking via digital means. Obviously it's more convenient, but how secure is it? And so that would also be part of the conversation that would ensue during that period, talking about security, internet security, etc., etc. Digi business, e-business, which we're starting to evolve into.
All right. You did mention in the intro some of the participants. I don't know if you want to mention them again. If we did slip there, probably someone who's just chiming in on the show. And then you did mention some of the participants who's going to be there, especially the folks from other countries who will be coming here.
And one big participant, which I'm guilty of it, NTRC, which is our own organization. They would be big players, and in fact, they are the ones who are used to dealing with these larger organizations. I think their interest is to bring out to Grenadians as a nation the importance of the work that they do. Yes?
Yes.
And these agencies, and I name ICANN and Aaron Caribnog, they are all involved in terms of issuing of IP addresses, the different systems, the telecom systems on a whole, what we have, what we need, what we don't use, etc., etc. So these agencies, and you'll have the chance to speak to them specifically individually. People might be saying, well, what's an IP address? Well, you have an internet address, don't you? A lot of people have emails. There's an IP address that goes with that. Your phone. Yes?
Yes.
So your cell phone, and now most of the phones at home are moving away from the analog system into the digital system. They too have IP addresses. Yes?
Yes.
Websites, etc., etc. I don't think the public is pretty much au fait and aware of it. And a lot of businesses are not sort of au fait that what can I use IP addresses for? Is it just restricted to my internet connection? How many of them do I have? And what runs my website, for example? Yes?
Yeah. I want to chime in on a question on you here on this one, because, do you think Grenada as a whole, are we ready for this level of this level of internet and the level of the ICT world? Oh, you think we are ready? I mean,
we use it.
We use it, but some folks would say it's used in a minimal capacity in terms of most developed countries in the world. We can raise a comparison, which I understand. I would say, but are we ready to go to that particular direction in this day and age? I understand what you will answer, but let me hear what you would say.
Well, I can speak from a layman and a business person. Knowledge is always power. here's the point. That's something that we say before. But guess what? Before, it used to be limited to only those who have the knowledge. With the advent of the internet, knowledge is out there. We can research and do so many things that we could not have done before. And therefore use technology via either the World Wide Web or any other medium, or plug directly into universities, apply for what you call subscriptions to different from universities, you name it. Yes?
Yep.
So knowledge is out there. The important thing is, what do we do with it?
All right. Let's take a break. Let's take a break here. We drew for a break. When we come back, the phones have been going, so we're probably going to entertain a call or two from our viewers and listeners out there who may have a question or two they may want to throw out to you. So let's take that break, and when we come back, we should chat some more. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point for today, Wednesday. We're coming right back.
Last week on Our Climate Reality.
Climate change is in fact a real phenomenon, and it is already occurring, and we are already beginning to feel the impacts in our region. And those impacts are not just restricted to the physical impacts, more rain, hotter, but it then impacts our quality of life and how we are able to, to really live on a day-to-day basis. And that's the significance of climate change.
We have to understand what our current climate pattern is, and then try to understand how that pattern might change in the future. And of course, the changing climate pattern will force us to shift our lifestyles, or could force us to shift our lifestyles. But let's also remember not just to keep it in a human-centric viewpoint. There's a whole biosphere out there that's going to be impacted. Coral reefs, marine ecosystems, agriculture, chickens, poultry farmers, and most of it is going to have an economic impact.
Join us this Wednesday at 8 p.m. as our panel discuss the opportunities and co-benefits for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. All Climate Reality, GBN Television Channel 7 and 11, K105 FM, and all our social media platforms.
You mentioned the wing kite, and you have things like manuals, force combat, We have the low power that.
When you push your push out, it is kind of like the same man do not.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. This morning, it's To The Point for today, Wednesday, the 22nd day of February. And with me this morning, we have Mr. Kennie John. He being the chairman of the Grenada Industry and Commerce. So we're talking this morning about, this particular activity that's coming up in the Spice Side, ICT Week 2023. And it kicks off from Monday the 27th, goes up until Friday the 3rd of March. In this segment, I want to invite you, your viewers and listeners out there, if you do have a question or two pertaining to the ICT week that is coming up. You probably heard something Mr. John mentioned that may have tickled your fancy a wee bit, and you may have a question about it in terms of that, or you may be interested even. Mr. John, I didn't ask that. It's in terms of public participation in this. How do they participate if they do want to be part of this?
Right.
Is it more for the technocrats and so forth?
Yeah, so you can contact the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. There's their websites to register. Mm-hmm. This is all free to Grenadians, and we thought we organized the specific days so that the interests of specific people would be met. It's not something generally that everybody would want to go to every day, okay. But it is free.
Okay, great. We do have a caller online. Let's go over to the caller and see if he has a question that we'd like to ask. Good morning to you, caller. Welcome.
Greetings. And Happy New Year. And a prosperous time ahead by God's grace. And for the ICT week that is coming on, as I think we are heading into what is being described as a digital economy. Now, just a few questions and hoping to make a comment. I'd like to get to know if this ICT week is organized or it's a program within the local community put on by the chamber and along with the National Telecommunication Regulatory Commission, or is it something that's linked with an international ICT week? Could I get that clarified before I continue? Is this ICT week something international on the, for example, the United Nations calendar, or is it a program scheduled by the local Grenadians and inviting international persons to come?
Right. Thank you, caller, for that question. This is a locally created what you call event. It's not on the United Nations calendar or anything like that. Essentially, this came together where myself, as being the new president of the chamber, was visited by a gentleman from Caribnog, and we talked about the various things that take place in our societies. He traveled in the world, traveled in the Caribbean, is a Caribbean man, saying, we should really do something to improve the knowledge and the awareness of ICT in general, and not only the end user part, but what's the technology and so on behind it. And so this is where this was born, essentially. NTRC became involved also. Again, he deals with NTRC and a number of people in there for many years. There are things that have happened and is happening in Grenada from the NTRC point of view that I think the public needs to know, because it's great, because we sort of stand out a little bit in terms of Grenada, and not Grenada, sorry, the Eastern Caribbean, and the work that they're doing to help promote ICT and the Digi era.
Okay, I'm very happy for the response, and as I said, I hope that it is very productive and prosperous, and the wide community of Grenadian schools and so on, they can come out. So I'm concluding that it is something from a commercial basis. I'm hoping that it brings revenue a lot to Grenada. Maybe we can have ICT tourism, and also to expose our people, taxation. So the government is supposed to be on it. I'm concerned, though, that if the same energy and synergy can be put into the International Telecommunication Week that normally takes place, or the International Telecommunication Day that normally takes place around in May, along with the government and the National Telecommunication Commission. If we can have this type of effort that is created for this February, could be transferred into a central time in May around the United Nations International Telecommunications Day. It's time for Grenadians to be more exposed, not in terms of the commercial and making money aspect of it, but we need to have a holistic idea as to how we're going forward as we look at the health, the quality of the service rendered by the providers, the gadgets, and the instruments that we get and give problems. We need to look at, I think you mentioned, the security aspects in which young people are being exposed. How could a parent or the government with the provider try to curb, assist in reducing this exposure? Because right now in the education system, we know that we rely a lot right now on the ICT. So if you can incorporate, I think there's a section in the Ministry of Education in which I think Mr. W is involved. He's always active on the media, warning the general population how to be careful. So because of time, I cannot say much because I know I'll be run up, the airwave. But I just want to recommend, I applaud what you are doing. I want to recommend that you reconsider in going forward, even in May from this year, and expand it for next year to consolidate all its efforts into May and have a broad cross-section of the companies coming, foreigners coming, display. And we talk about the history. We can go back to when, as I think you mentioned, when we had, for example, the Grenada telephone company, we had this little old-time telephones. So the children, the modern-day children can know how it developed and come to what we have right now. We need to seek the interest of the public. We need to have reliability of service, safety, and if you can assist the government to have internet penetration throughout the country, so that children in rural areas can do the homework at SBA in a relaxed atmosphere. So I want to end, I will force to end by saying, please try to encourage and get some form of technical assistance for scholarship for most of our people in CC, and also they can pump some money into the Ministry of Education to help the government to have this internet penetration so that our country can benefit from this private sector initiative creation that you are having with NTCRC. Would like to see it broaden into May as World Telecommunication Day, with Grenada having a whole month or a whole week of activity in which we cover the whole idea of telecommunication and how we develop and look at the safety and spiritual aspect of it. I will end by saying www, the World Wide Web, in which Satan is going to captivate our people in a very attractive way. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution there. Caller did say a lot, Mr. John. Caller did say a whole lot.
In fact, I could not have said anything better. I think he was quite well informed. His appeals have certainly resonates. Our doing this, having this initiative, what the caller just said, is basically what we hope to achieve.
All right.
Education. Education. I think it's important. In the wider world, kids are being educated. The public is being educated. Just on a little sidebar, one of the largest purchasers of iPads, would you believe it, grandparents?
Yeah.
To stay connected to their grandchildren. Little things like that, because it's simplified, but we want to know that what's behind it is safe. We want to know that content coming into our country. Wouldn't it be good to have some AI algorithms to basically filter, the extent to which kids could actually view the net, surf the net.
We do have another caller. We do have another caller, Mr. John. We've been holding for a wee bit. Let's entertain him. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Telesford. Greetings and greetings to you, guests. Very, very interesting conversation there this morning, but I have a little concern. Listening to your delivery there, I can see that all that's being said as it relates to the usage of quote-unquote ICT people who can see. I want to talk of the participation or lack of participation, should I say, of those in this here country which or should I say, who suffer from visual impairment. Indeed, we are starving, and you should understand why I say we are starving as it relates to what we can do to participate and to be part of the busload as we move forward. Mr. Johnson, do you think that a common citizen will have an opportunity in any one of your forums there to make a statement the deficiency of, should I say, participation and accessibility to ICT which is suffered by the people with visual impairment, and I dare quote the number of the 2011 census, and of course we're waiting for the new one. 9,348 Grenadians suffer with visual impairment, and we're left back. Do you think I will have an opportunity representing no one but myself, but certainly speaking on behalf of a people, of a section of our population that suffers these problems, so we can give certain ideas and make certain suggestions, etc.? Thank you very much and have a nice day, will you, gentlemen?
Thank you also, caller, for your contribution. Mr. John.
I would say certainly the participants are free to come. There's nobody that's being charged. But I just want to speak a moment on what the gentleman said. It is very important. A lot of people who are not as able, and I can't remember the word right now, but I'm not going to use the word disabled. They do have quite a lot to contribute to our society. And technology, ICT, is a great help in that regard. And bringing awareness to all the plights that are in our society and the way ICT can assist is important. So certainly he can come down. There's not a specific restriction on date. We particularly named the forums to try to attract certain people, but certainly I think his points are very well received. And I guess in this regard, in the first instance, in public spaces, how can people who are visually impaired, gain access to public services and all of that? Because as we know today, you can literally on a computer, tablet or that, like, you can perhaps get a law, let's put it that way, and have it read it to you. Yes, it's fantastic stuff that is happening up there that will help quite a lot of people. So, I would encourage and welcome his remarks.
All right. We do have another caller. Let's entertain this caller because we strapped for time. Just approximately 2 minutes left. Good morning to you, caller.
And morning to your guest. I know I don't have much time, but I would say we have wasted the possibility of really making, much use of the technology that has been unfolding for quite some time. I've been fortunate to be able to have an idea of what is happening worldwide through McKinsey. That is that consultancy agency, which I've followed for years. I've been accessing the information for over 2 decades. And when I hear the conversation that takes place in Grenada, whether it's at the level of the private sector, government, even in the civil society, we had behind there's still this suspicion or superstition about the whole technology thing. We say all kind of stuff without understanding that whether we like it or not, ICT with us, and it will help continue to define our lives in a lot of ways. And that's why we have to make effort to ensure that we are not prescribing and that we are part of the prescription, that we are prescribing what happens. There are lots of things being written, for instance, there's a book called Surveillance Capitalism, in which it is being warned that people are going to be managed by those tech companies and so on. These are things people need to be reading also. We need to be more broad. I think we're very, very narrow in this country. And I think the private sector, we always say that the private sector should lead the way and so on. It's good that to hear somebody like Mr. John speaking, as somebody who seems to understand. But most time you hear people speaking, they're very narrow and very inadequate in even convincing anybody that we should go that way. I mean, don't forget, a few years ago we were talking about science and technology by a certain leader. When you look for the legacy of that, there's no legacy. Thank you.
Thank you also, caller. Thank you also. Mr. John, I'm not sure if you want to respond to the caller or we get time to make some closing remarks.
Sure. I think what he said, as all the callers today, the contributions were good, and it just proves that the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, in terms of its efforts and the partners, we hope there's wide participation and is well received. So far, the comments seem to be that it's well received, and we should attempt to go forward and explore and learn.
All right. right. Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Kenny John, for being with us this morning. Very interesting in terms of the conversation. I certainly hope this ICT week will certainly could be a success, and in terms of moving forward, in terms of how ICT is viewed and used here in Grenada. I want to thank you once again, sir, for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much. So, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great morning. I'm always talking about topics that are of interest and to our society. The economy has to build, and the society has to be built, and it must be done together.
All right. Thanks once again, and all the best, sir. Have yourself a great day.
Thank you. Take care. You have a good morning.
It's Classic 105 and GBN TV. That's where we come to the end of today's program, Up to the Point. Join me again tomorrow for another edition of To the Point. Have yourself a great day, folks. Your viewers and listeners, have a good one.